Pocket watches have a rich history spanning at least 450 years. Millions of them were produced during that time, and many households have pocket watches at home today, either out of interest in collecting them, but mostly as heirlooms or as inheritances from previous generations. Getting to know the value of those watches can be a confusing thing. Oftentimes a watch is worth far less than expected by the owner, but every once in a while people are in for a surprise. In this video I will give you a framework to better understand where your watch might sit within the 450 years of pocket watch culture. Also, at the end of the video you will be able to fill out a checklist yourself for your pocket watch to get a better understanding for the cultural and monetary value of the watch. In the previous video, I talked mostly about the collecting of pocket watches and how the market for pocket watches looks like today. I want to build on that video, and today we will go more into detail on different categories of pocket watches that help to define the value of watches. Obviously, I don't know your individual watch, and therefore I can't give you exact values. A qualified expertise can only come from a watch expert, and I am certainly not that expert. Also, a 15-minute YouTube video is of course not enough to cover a vast topic like this in detail. If you seek to get a reliable value for your watch, have your specific watch researched and evaluated by an expert. I want to bring a little more structure to this vast field of pocket watches. And to understand the market for pocket watches a little easier, I try to categorize them a little bit. This is my system. I sort of made this up in the last couple of weeks. So it definitely will not be perfect, but I think it will be good enough to go forward with it. Also, a pocket watch does not have to be strictly assigned to a single of those categories. They can all check more than one box, but you will see what I mean in a second. The first category I would call antique pocket watches. Because pocket watches span such a vast time span, I assigned the antique category mostly to unique pieces that predate the industrialization. Those watches are often highly decorated with enamel paintings, gilding and engravings, and they also visually are very different from pocket watches that were made during the industrialization. So that's why I gave them their own category. Then we have mass production pocket watches. Those are not bad pocket watches, they're good or average grade from brands who serve sort of like the middle class market. They are made very well, but they are still made with mass-produced movements and mass-produced cases. Those movements can come from other companies or from the same companies, and cases can be in precious metals, but they can also be plated or made in valuable but cheaper materials like silver. And this pocket watch here is a good example. It is of decent quality, but essentially a mass market product, and unfortunately not of a very high monetary value today. In its current condition, it's maybe 75 to 100 bucks. The same with this Alpina pocket watch, although this has a little bit of gold in it and it's a step up in quality again, but it's sort of still a middle class to upper middle class market product. And then we have modern pocket watches, and this is a funny sort of category because there are relatively modern pocket watches. One origin are independent watchmakers who created them, let's say within the last 50 years, but there are also some big companies who created pocket watches fairly recently. IWC is a good example, and IWC offered pocket watches in their standard catalog as recent as 2008, but they produced pocket watches all throughout the 90s, for example. A good example for a modern but valuable pocket watch is, for example, this one here. This was made by a watchmaker called Stefan Paulo in the 1990s, and he was a self-taught watchmaker who also had a YouTube channel where you can watch him make watches like this, and he was showcasing different traditional techniques for crafting watch parts. And sadly, Stefan Paulo died in 2023, but I link his YouTube channel down below if that channel still exists. And this is sort of like a important example of a modern pocket watch that obviously is very valuable, both in a cultural but also in a money sense. So far, the categories are along a timeline. The rest of the categories, however, are not bound to a specific period in time, but can apply to pocket watches across all periods. makers and brands of pocket watches. Because brands sort of elevate the price, I sort of put them in their own category. A pocket watch from a well-known brand in sort of like the same quality class as a lesser known brand can fetch a higher price, obviously, and this is something to look out for. Then we have high quality pocket watches. They can be simple, but they are first class quality. This category overlaps with the category of brands, and the movements are usually of own construction with exceptional finishing, heavy gold cases, and regulated to the highest degree. A. Lange and Söhne pocket watches are a good example. They're very complicated ones, but they are also very simple ones. But those simple ones are still made to the highest degree possible. And because this is a clear difference to the mass production, which is still good quality, that's why they deserve their own category. The next category is complicated pocket watches. And those complex and often very important pocket watches of big brands are often equipped with many complications like minute repeaters or quarter repeaters, chrono and split-second chronographs, all kinds of calendar applications and other complications. And because this technical complexity and the skill needed to make them, I gave them their own category. Then we have pocket watches as scientific instruments, or as instruments of practical use aside from a private use. These are usually first-class quality pocket watches. Those overlap with brands very often, and the movements are often of own construction with exceptional finishing. Those pocket watches are built and developed as technical and scientific instruments. Those are observation watches for ships or for scientific applications, railroad-grade pocket watches, chronometers, and all kinds of other watches. Sometimes special kinds of chronographs, but because they had a professional use, I would rank them as their own category. If you know more about this topic, if you want to give feedback, or if you have more ideas for categories, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section down below. I think comments from the community help to share perspectives and help to open up concepts like in this video for further ideas and refinement. I very much appreciate your perspective and your comment. In addition to these categories, other factors are at play and have influence on the value of a watch. Some of them are, for example, the provenance of the watch, the current condition, and of course the originality. I made a checklist for you based on the categories we talked about a minute ago. You can check the boxes for your specific pocket watch and add up the numbers and get a value that gives you an idea where your watch ranks among all the others. So let's do an example with this watch here you already have seen. My watch falls into the category of material value on the pyramid, due to some precious metal present, but it's actually not a whole lot. It also falls into the mass-produced, or in this case serially produced category. This watch was made by Alpina, which was a well-respected pocket watch brand, and in relation to the material value category, it gets the points for brands or maker. Although this watch is of very good quality, it is not of high quality, and it is also not a complicated watch, nor is or was it a scientific instrument, so no points for these categories. This watch has no relevant provenance either, so 0 points here. No president, artist, or other world figure owned this watch. The condition is used, the dial is cracked in some places, and the case has some dings to it. But the overall condition is original, so 5 points here. So you can see if we add up the points, my watch checks out at 16 points. So it has some value, but that value is very limited. And on the whole, this watch is not special. But nevertheless, it's extremely special to me and holds great emotional value. And that's why I keep it and don't scrap it for the metal. I hope you have a lot of fun doing the same exercise for your watches. And I hope this video held some interesting information, helped you to understand your pocket watch a little better, and maybe made you interested in the field of collecting. This video will be the last one about pocket watches for now, and in case you haven't seen the video about pocket watch collecting, you can click on it here. If you want to know how a pocket watch works, you can click on this video here. All the best for you, and I hope to see you in the next video.